Panther Nation, the C3 Podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com.
I had fun, man, just out, you guys joking, we working at the same time, putting the work in as a team. Like I said, I'm just glad to be with the guys,
My favorite night of the week?
We're going to go out there, and we're playing to win. We're not out here just to show up. We're out here to win.
I don't want guys that want to win, because really, who doesn't? Nobody wants to win. Everybody wants to win. I want players that hate to lose.
Well, this embodies everything that we are as a team, as an organization. Our motto is keep pounding. That's what we do, you know what I'm saying?
What's the deal, Panther fans? It's your boy, the Professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn. It's the C3 Podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. If you're in the chat room, we appreciate it, and just give us a shout to let us know everything is okay, because you know how all this thing goes every Tuesday night. But this is where we get together and talk Panthers football every week, the latest news and opinions from the fan perspective, and I do it with my homeboys. Tonight I'm here with Zack Lutrell, special guest, and Mel Mayock somewhere hiding out there. Mel, how's it going?
Good, man. Hey, this is finally draft week. Seems like, man, I was just telling Zack before the show, man, it seems like the schedule was announced like forever ago, and that wasn't even a week ago. This draft can't get here soon enough, man. Thursday night, TikTok. But hey, I'm so excited to have Zack on the show tonight, man. I tell you, Zack, you are instrumental in changing the culture of the Panther fan base, and thank you for that. So we're happy to have you on tonight. Let's talk some football.
Hey guys, I appreciate you having me. You guys have been doing this thing about as long as I have, so we're all some OGs here. But I think the last time I was on the show was just called in and talked to you, Tony. So this is the first time I see my face. It's a little scary.
No, you're making it look good. It's I was thinking about that. Is how long is we've been doing the podcast or trying to figure out how to do one for 5 years now. I think when we had you on was when you were announcing all the kind of sub Roaring Riot groups or departments. What do you call them?
Chapters. All different chapters. Yeah, you and I connected. I guess it was probably about this time in 2015.
Is with the Camwiles, right?
Started throwing some ideas around and doing some stuff together. And yeah, that was the year that we announced the memberships, and we had the first 7 chapters. So it was May of 2015 when we did that. So yeah, here we are 3 years later, man.
Yeah, well, you guys are continuing to pick up steam. We're going to talk about that tonight. Guys, the show is Has Hurney Learned from the Past, or Will It Make Him Gun Shy? This is episode 18.12. This is the pre-draft not the pre-draft special, but I guess the last show before the draft. We'll be getting into some of that in the back end. But since last week, the schedule was announced, and we will be kind of going through that and kind of talking about some of the opportunities with Roaring Riot with that. And they've got some more news coming out. It just seems like every year you guys try to shake it up more and more, which is good. Keep it fresh, guys. But before we get into all that, we need your help. We need you. We appreciate every single person in this chat room. You guys make this the most interactive podcast out there. We appreciate it. So while you're there, go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Hit the subscribe. Help us to get to that 1,000. Doesn't look like we're going to make it by the draft, but we can make it by organized team activities. So that's our new goal. So let's get to 1,000. We appreciate it. If you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, go ahead and subscribe. Consider sharing this podcast with a friend. That's my strategy for growing the podcast. Take the link and share it with one Panther fan and say, check out this podcast. I think you'll like it because you're a Panther fan. And how could you not? Because it's just like driving to the game with your homeboys and talking a little football. So, guys, let's talk about this. We'll start with the schedule.
Tony, yes, before you do that, I want to get a little bit of interaction going in the chat room, if you don't mind. I want to get a quick poll. All of you guys out there, I see Legacy Lines out there. I see Slim J. I see Shaked, Cody Latchney, so on and so forth. I want to hear how you guys are feeling going into this draft. Just give me either a hashtag feeling Hurney or you're not feeling Hurney. Just let me know how you're feeling. All right, and just do that as we keep going.
I'm going to start it off with feeling Hurney. So you guys can get into that. We'll cover that later on the show and get the sentiments. Guys, the schedule came out last week. I thought I was going to be excited to kind of watch the reveal, and then I found myself not paying attention to it because there was a billion leaks coming out on Twitter. So I was like, I feel like I already know that we're playing the Cowboys, and we're going to have to talk about this for the end of time. But the schedules come out, and ultimately, we'll go to you, Zach. What are the big games on this list that you were excited about? Because you guys travel, you go to all the home games. You're really built around the schedule in so many ways.
Well, first of all, are we allowed to be excited about the schedule being released? Because, it seemed like some of the media members were criticizing us for that day. But
Darren Gant, right?
For me, it's an exciting day, and I know for a lot of Panther fans it is. I mean, obviously, we're figuring out where we're going to be, and we start making and finalizing all the plans for all the away game trips. But really, I mean, the leaked information about the Cowboys game that came before the schedule actually came out at 8:00 was a nice little nugget for us to salivate over until the rest of the schedule was released, because I don't know the exact stats, but I know it's been 4 or 5 years in a row that the Panthers have started on the road. So to get the home game, to get it against the Cowboys, which is obviously don't have to really tell you, explain it too much. It's a big home game, and their fans are notorious for taking over our stadium. So to be able to open up the season and at a 4:25 time slot, I mean, it's a hell of a way to kick the season off right there, guys.
You're not kidding, man.
Is that 425 spot because the Panthers made the playoffs and it's the Cowboys, or is it really because it's the Cowboys?
It's because they want to give us an extra long tailgate time so that we could be nice and sauced up when we go in there and see all their fans. That's the real reason.
Well, it's going to be rowdy because every Cowboy fan thinks they have the best team in the world still, and they're an interesting, unique bunch. Let's just put it that way. Cowboy fans, guys. Mel, so we start at home, we host the Cowboys, then we go on the road to the Falcons, and then back at home with the Bengals. The thing that stuck out to me, the one thing I'm always interested in, is when is the bye. And again, I feel like the last 7 years, probably 6 out of the 7 years, we've had a bye by week 5, and they start in week 4. So the Panthers get no love on the back end with the bye. It hasn't hurt us in the past as much as I thought. The bye has not helped us as much in the past sometimes either. What do you think about the position of the bye, Mel?
It is tough. I mean, the NFL, what makes NFL special over the NBA and, other leagues to me is the parity, right? And I don't understand, maybe Zach has an idea, but I don't know why they can't just say bye weeks or week 7, 8, and 9, and then put all 32 teams in there and just get it done so that nobody has a real advantage. I mean, we're going in the 4th week as a bye. The Falcons are going in week 8, right dead in the center of their schedule, which, is typically ideal. So, but like you said, our history coming out of the bye week has been terrible. I think we won last year, but we haven't historically done real well. So maybe it's in our mind, but I don't like the thought of a week 4 bye and then the last 3 games of the year being against the Falcons and the Saints, and very well could be to decide the NFC South. Any type of disadvantage kind of ticks me off. So,
Zach, it's an interesting question there with the schedule. Is that and since you kind of plan these things, I think that's where plan visits and to that effect that we see. I guess the NFL trying to get the most value out of the schedule, get the best games on prime time, line it up. But my friend has an interesting kind of proposal, and that is to either, his idea was to extend the season by 2 games and add an extra bye, right? And so that there's a way that you can cycle through it more efficiently to preserve the guys in a way. He also is talking about slimming down the preseason in that way. But for me, the idea of having maybe elongating the regular season to 18 weeks, but still keeping a 16-week schedule, and then making it so you can more fairly give these buys out, I think that would be effective. And what I would think it would help us do is in those bye weeks, you don't have like 6 games at 1 o'clock, but you have more balance between the schedule. Do you know of any logistics that would make something like that impossible?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, the season always starts after Labor Day. It's the week after Labor Day, so sometimes that can be earlier in September. Sometimes, like this year, it's the second week in September. So I don't know. As far as having the 17 weeks, if this, there's nothing really set that says the Super Bowl has to be the first weekend of February, as far as I know. So I don't know if it's just the way it's always been, the way it's preferred, but. I don't know if there's anything that really goes into the creating the buys the way they are. I mean, to me, truthfully, I don't pay a lot of attention to it. I think about it more selfishly, to be honest with you. I think, okay, what part of the schedule can I actually take a week off and have a little bit of a break from being on the road? So that's how I think of the buy. So I guess that's kind of along with wanting it later for the team. I want it a little bit later for myself just to catch up on some rest.
They're going to have to get creative in this process to some degree if they do want to incorporate London in more. If they are continuing, we see the effects that Thursday night games seemingly have on teams, that I know that they try to give them a bye around that time to help ease the Thursday night game. But we've seen that teams just look like players look not well rested on the Thursday night game. So I do think that there has to be somebody out there that can come up with something that makes it so that, I mean, why do we have to have, in some ways, I think it would be cool because then you wouldn't have to divert your attention to so many games at once. You would have maybe 6 games on Sunday and then in those weeks. So I'm sure somebody is getting paid to think long and deep about that. Other games on this schedule, look, revenge game. We got the Giants on the schedule. Oh, the gangster Dave Gettleman is coming back. Who else is there? Somebody else on the Giants.
I think this. I'm sorry. But
Jonathan Stewart. Jonathan Stewart. Right?
He probably won't even be playing, though. I bet they take Saquon Barkley.
Right. So we got the Giants, the Redskins, the Eagles is probably the toughest match in those first 7 weeks. You got the Ravens. Tell us this, Zach. Is it Thursday night, November 8th, at the Steelers? How is that game going to look in your mind for not the game itself, but the experience for fans?
Well, Tony, what I always tell people when they're asking me, which games they should go to, I tell them if they're really only going to pick one game or 2 games each year, I try to steer them towards the AFC opponents because I think it's pretty common for a lot of fans to have the same goal of hitting all the stadiums or as many stadiums as they can. I mean, we hear that all the time from people that travel with us. So the way the schedule rotates, we play the AFC opponents once every 8 years, so knock them out when we can, right? And having Pittsburgh this year, I mean, obviously a lot of people are excited about going up there just because of the tradition of playing the Steelers in the preseason and Richardson's relationship with the Moore family up there, the Rooney family. And then also Cleveland, I'm super excited about Cleveland. It's a pretty underrated city. We got a big block of tickets right above the Panthers tunnel. The trip is actually laid out very nicely. And then when the schedule comes out, we get a Thursday night game in Pittsburgh and a December 9th game in Cleveland. So we couldn't be, I don't want to use the word, I don't want to say screwed, but it's definitely a little more challenging for both those games than I was hoping for. So to answer your question, the Thursday night games are tough, man, just because a lot of people will just really want to come in Thursday morning, so we don't get to do any kind of welcoming party or get together the night before. So a lot of people come in Thursday, get out on Friday, and the ones that do stay just kind of do their own thing after the game. So, it just takes away a little bit of the experience that we like to create by having a whole weekend of hanging out with a bunch of Panther fans and doing a bunch of stuff around the city. And it's more just come in, we'll throw a big tailgate, go beat the Steelers, and have a little party afterwards, and then you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, basically.
I got to tell you, 2 games I'm really excited about is the Redskins and the Detroit game.
Yeah,
I think both those are going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know we were talking about the Redskins with you guys earlier, and we did that trip up there 2 years ago. Monday Night Football is freezing cold, but we've got a big group up in D.C., the Capitol Riot. It's probably one of our largest chapters outside of the Carolinas, and they come out in full force. But So we've got the framework for the trip already established. But what makes this year different? 2 years ago, we weren't able to get group tickets, so it was just kind of every man for himself. We were able to secure a block within a section, but we had to go through our ticket brokers and some online resources. But this year, we were actually able to secure 300 tickets from the team in the lower level, which is really unheard of for the Redskins. So, when Panther fans are get mocked because we don't sell out our stadium, I can tell you, I've been to Philly, I've been to all these other stadiums with these historic fan bases. When their team's down, they're not there either. I promise you.
Oh, they're fickle as can be as well.
But man, well, hey, I cannot wait. I will be at that DC trip.
Yes.
And for all of you folks out there in the chat room, all you folks listening to this podcast, if you've not been to a Roaring Riot road game, put that on the bucket list, man. That's a lot of fun because you do have that party the night before. The only time I've been able to do it was the Jacksonville game in 2015. And Tony and Joe and I all went, and we had a lot of fun. But being able to be there with 200, 300 other Panther fans walking into the stadium together, that's so much better than just going with you and the wife or you and a buddy. It's just a different animal.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And these games, Detroit included, we've got actually lower level blocks for all those games. So, our whole philosophy is keeping everybody together. And of course, we want to get the best tickets we can. Some stadiums, like Atlanta, for example, we can only get upper level tickets. But for Cleveland, for DC, for Detroit, we have lower level blocks in all those cities. And it makes a difference. I mean, last year, Detroit was one of our best experiences. We were so loud during that game that after the touchdown to Funchess, I was right in our end zone. We were on the corner there. Cam comes over and just points to our entire section. And then I don't know if you guys could see it on TV, but he took the victory formation on his first knee. He just stood up and just pointed back over to our crowd over there. So that was how loud we are when we're in the lower level, and those players recognize it and they can hear it too. So to be able to do those in those three cities is going to be a blast, man.
Yeah, I think when we were at the Jacksonville game, there were reports of us booing or the stadium was booing, and they didn't know because we were on the road that we were saying Luke so loud, and you could hear it on the television. I had friends texting me and things like that. One of those teams that though is not fickle. They don't have a fickle fan base. Hey, and is Joe here?
He is
right here.
Hey, Joe Riolano, welcome to the show, buddy.
I've been here listening.
Oh, well, we're glad to have you, Joe. You've been hearing us talk about the schedule. One of those things that Zach mentioned was that, a lot of these fan bases, they act like they show up every game, that they take care of business. But there is one team and one fan base that's on the schedule this week, Joey, that has we have to go there. And their fan base does this in the face of all adversity. The Cleveland Browns, those fans, I don't know what their ticket sales are like, but I've seen some fans in Greenville, North Carolina, cheering for the Browns, with the most organized tailgate at the dang bar and stuff. So, Joe, are you interested in a December 9th game in Cleveland?
Am I interested? I think that would be the ultimate way to see a Cleveland Browns game, would be to see it in the winter, in the element, in the dog pound. That would be, if you're going to have that experience, that is the way it should be done.
Yeah, you got to do it right.
Exactly. I said that about going to Lambeau, and I went to Lambeau the day before Thanksgiving, or the weekend before Thanksgiving. And once I got there, I thought it was a miserable idea.
Yeah, sounds good. It sounds good right now from a 68-degree North Carolina, exactly. Right? But no, I think Joe's got a point there. Is that they've somehow been able to cultivate some sort of experience that transcends their suckiness. And
it's a badge of honor almost.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I went to this bar. We were going out for lunch. It was like a pub, and it was after church one day with my in-laws. And these cats come in there. I was like, we just got to go somewhere that's got a TV. There's kickoff at 1. I got to be near a television at 1 o'clock or else I'm dipping. So they were like, well, let's go here. We went there, and it's a Browns bar. And it's AJ McMurphy's, Joey, And these mugs came with like party gifts, signs they were hanging on the walls. I was like, you guys get down for winning 0 games. What's that?
Was it the first game of the season?
No, it was like week 4. Yeah. I mean, these dudes don't mess around. So, Joey, we got the Steelers on Thursday. Only 2 primetime games this year, I believe. Is that correct? Thursday night and what is
Monday
that?
Night.
Monday night against the Saints.
Right.
Joey, we gotta face the we do face the Lions and the Seahawks. One in Detroit, then we go to Seattle. Then we host Seattle. Then we go to the Bucks, the Browns, and then we host the Saints on that Monday night game. But we played the Saints 2 times in 3 weeks. This is reminiscent of the Falcons last year, 2 years ago.
Right?
Yeah, I felt like we just played them every other week. It was definitely – so we got that. Joey, what can you tell us or what do you think teams face when they play each other that quickly, like back-to-back like that almost?
Well, the good thing is there's not a whole lot of adjustments you can make. So, the teams are going to be really familiar with one another. And this is toward the end of the season. So everybody's established tendencies, and you kind of get an idea of, who the playmakers are, who you want to take away, and who you're going to try to make them beat you with. So you have that. And I think really the reason that we're seeing this take place is the NFL trying to make these end-of-the-year games matter. And that's why we're seeing these two times at the end of the year, hoping that these games are for the division. Like this past year, for example, with New Orleans, that was for the division when we played them. And they're hoping that the same sort of thing happens.
Yeah, it does make it. Now, look, I go on Pirate Radio to talk Panthers and the NFL every Friday with my buddy Clip Brock. And we were talking, he's a Redskins fan, so we immediately were seeing if he was going to be able to make this game, but he does the college radio show and stuff, so he's not going to be able to go to this Redskins game. But we were talking about this, and he mentioned that for the Redskins, while they do have it goes Cowboys, Eagles, Giants, they have 2 AFC games mixed in there in weeks 15 and 16. They play the Jaguars, and then they also play the Titans. And what he was kind of referencing is like this is the opposite of what we think that they're usually trying to do, because not only they're not even NFC games. So like, yes, you can get a win, but if you're trying to make headway for a wild card or in your division, you can only move up through a W. You can't get any other help. So the question and what his suggestion was, he just threw it out there, we're lightly talking about, is maybe you do something like college football and you put those games that are on the schedule that are other like AFC games or maybe other division games, you kind of crescendo towards the end of the season in games that matter. So
Right, I think I know what you mean. Where in college football they have the to be determined.
Right, and then they put like their conference games. I'm getting some feedback right now. I
think you have to look at it like this as well. Were the Redskins in contention for the division last year at the end of the year?
Were the Redskins last? Yeah, I think. Well, no, I think they were pretty cruddy last year.
No, I think the Eagles had wrapped it up pretty early, right?
That's right.
Yeah, the Eagles ran away with it.
So my point being, maybe the NFL is thinking, well, the Redskins aren't really going to have a shot at it again this year. Whereas in the NFC South, the teams are so close, they want to have those division games at the end of the year.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. All right, so there's cool things to talk about with schedule, but we also brought Zack on tonight to talk about a new endeavor that you guys are releasing, and one that this has to do with is that if Panther fans are whiny, which, there are whiny fans out there, the one thing that they whine about, which I think is fair and legitimate, is that Panther fans sell their tickets to other fans. And there are a couple of people I know that this is their thing. Like, they are like, I can't believe you guys do this. We got to create a forum. You got to sell this, right? So it seems like this has been on the heart of Zack Lutrell as well. Zack, what is going on with you guys this year?
Well, we get a lot of those requests, Tony, and we get them, all throughout the year. We put out an end of the year survey after the season was over, and that was one of the big requests that we got was how we could set this up. And truthfully, on game day or going into the weekend of the games, I get so many requests from people asking for me to help sell their tickets or people looking for tickets. And I mean, with all the stuff I have going on as far as setting up the tailgates or if we have an away game trip, it's the last thing that I have time to worry about is trying to match tickets, with buyers and sellers. So, usually I don't even pay much attention to it or just, tell them I can't work on that. But, what we decided to do was, within our site, we wanted to create a ticket exchange. So one thing we have learned is that there are plenty of Panther fans that are going to sell their tickets online, try to make money from them. I mean, there's plenty of those out there, right? But surprisingly enough, there are a large number of fans that are willing to sell their tickets for face value too, just to get them in the hands of a Panther fan, right? So, what we're doing is giving those people, who are generous enough just to pass their tickets on for the face value price platform where they can, find buyers basically, and it's going to be a forum. It's going to be on our site. It'll only be visible on our site if you are a current member. So that way, we can really monitor who's going in there and who's interacting with the posts in there. So, again, it was something we wanted to do to give people that wanted to sell their tickets, that platform to match up. And what we did this week is, we were able to work it out with the team to buy a, decent sized block for all the home games, all 8 of them. And, we're going to use those tickets to basically seed the ticket exchange. And those will all be available to all of our members for face value too. So that includes the Giants, the Cowboys, every single home game that we have, those will all be on there for face value.
That's a cool. I feel like I'm hearing myself.
Great. That is absolutely great. I think that's something that you really that's been needed for a long time. I know me being a non-PSL holder, I'm glad something like this has finally come about.
Well, and the idea really came together when we were trying to figure out how we could help members and Panther fans from out of state who maybe only come back for a game or two, how we could help them find a better solution for tickets, really, because they're obviously not going to buy PSLs if they're living far away and can't come back every weekend. So that's not an option for them. So unless they have a personal connection who has season tickets, then more than likely they're purchasing them on StubHub or some third-party solution like that. So they're paying exorbitant fees on top of the raised ticket prices. So that fan, that particular type of person who's kind of in between and only can go to one game a year or 2 games a year, they don't really have a good solution other than spend tons of money to get a ticket. So, we're really trying to help them out. And if they want to come in town, they pick their game and they can go on the ticket exchange and just grab one for face value.
How much of an inflated rate are we paying general? I mean, not a percentage wise, but is it significant that we're over? I don't even pay attention. You know what I'm saying? When I buy my tickets, like I just go up there and buy what I'm willing to spend, and then I don't ever look at the ticket till I get there. But how much are these tickets getting bumped up significantly on these sites?
You're talking about the tickets you're purchasing on StubHub or online?
Yeah, SeatGeek or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just varies. I mean, obviously, there's tons of variables in there. The Panthers winning, who are they playing?
Right.
When's the game? I mean, there's a lot of
get into a
factors.
playoff game. Whew.
Yeah, what are all the stakes surrounding the game? But yeah, typically, I mean, you're paying. It feels like a minimum of 40 to 50% higher than the ticket price, from what I've been able to tell.
Mm-hmm.
There a lot of positive comments in the chat room about the creation of this ticket exchange. Anna Saravia says this ticket exchange will be amazing. J Dub, who is a Midwesterner, who is gonna, this is a perfect opportunity for someone who could potentially be trying to join the team, maybe either, for an occasional weekend or a trip like that. He says he's definitely, he says, thank you for this. And Tin Tizzy says, I'm going to definitely look at this when I buy tickets. So that is a positive thing. But it sounds like you do need to be a Roaring Riot member to take advantage of this.
Yes.
Is that one of the, I guess, a secondary benefit as to why you're doing this, Zach, sort of to help bump up membership, because you do have to be a member to use the forum.
Right. So I mean, of course, we're always looking for ways to add more value to our membership. I mean, obviously, you get the tangible items with the T-shirt and the sticker, or whatever we put in the membership package, but we're always constantly thinking of things that we can do that don't necessarily cost our members money, that can raise the value of the membership. And appealing to Panther fans outside of Charlotte is always challenging, because if you're not going to go on a bunch of trips, or you can't make it to the tailgate, home tailgate each week, then you can reasonably question, why be a member, right? So, again, putting this together initially to try to help the out-of-town Panther fans come to Charlotte and have a reasonable place to buy a ticket was really just the incentive to help our out-of-state members and provide more benefit to them. So, yes, absolutely, it'll help us obviously increase our membership too. I mean, there's no secret. We obviously want to continue to grow, because for us, like we're
at the same time, if you did not require folks to be a member to be on that site to buy it, what would stop, say, a Dallas Cowboy fan from going on and buying those tickets?
Right.
So
it
makes total sense.
Roll it, and then I mean, we're using capital that we make from the membership revenue, and we're turning it into buying season tickets, essentially a big block of season tickets that we're going to turn and sell, not for a profit, just to put back in people's hands. So, we're able to do this because we had 5,000 members last year.
Yeah.
Now, think about if we get to 10,000 members or 15,000 members, we can turn this 50 ticket block into, a 200 ticket block, into a section. There's no limit to what we can do with when people are pulling their money like this, and we're creating this section and put it back into delivering the tickets back to the fans like that.
But Zach, just to be clear, you got 50 seats as a seed, but you're also opening it up to folks like me who have PSLs and I'm a Roaring Riot member. If there were a game that I did not want to go to or could not go to, I could post it on that site. So you're going to have much more. You're going to have much more than 50 tickets.
Absolutely. Again, of course, the buyers, people looking for tickets, are excited. But I've had plenty of messages from our our members and fans who are like, "Hey, man, I'm going to be happy to sell. I know I can't go to these games already. I'll be posting them up there, and let's get them into the right people's hands."
Yeah, me personally, I don't want to take $1 extra over face value if it means an opposing fan's going to be in the stadium. I just have no desire for that. So if I go somewhere where I know a Panther fan is buying it, I'm excited about that. As a seller.
And some people do, and we're not judging them. I mean, everybody's got different reasons for how and why they sell their tickets, but this is our mission, and we're going to start it this way, and we're going to put our money behind, what we say we want to do. And obviously 50 tickets in one section for a game isn't going to make a huge difference, but we have to start somewhere, right?
That's significant, though. I mean, it's not anything. It's nothing to sneeze at. That's what I would say. I say congratulations to that. Legacy Lines Lynn is up here, and she asked this. She says, if I want to get one of these Cowboy tickets, and we know what Lynn does for Panther Nation, she says, but I want to bring my son, and he happens to be a Cowboys fan. Is that going to be problematic?
Well, let me answer this. I met Lance, and Lance is a stand-up guy. So if we're gonna let a Cowboys fan in, we'll at least let one. How about that?
All right. Nice. I would say this is the last point on this that I'd like to point out to people that are listening. Why I suggest that you join the Roaring Riot and also support these kind of things is, well, there's a couple of things. Number one, Zack has always been remarkably friendly to Panther fans of all shapes, sizes, and specifically us, right? So it's a very cordial kind of opportunity to go to a game, to experience this with friends. But I think the real benefit that I'm seeing is that the Roaring Riot is looking for innovative ways to, like you said, add more value to that membership and to expand as an organization, as a fan base, because you go from chapters to now the tailgates. You're selling, there's more alcohol options available now that they changed the laws with the brunch law or whatever, right? So you get all of these things. It does not seem like you guys are just saying, hey, we got 5,000 members, let's just sit on this. You're rolling this back in, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, again, we want to provide the best value we can, and the more, I mean, it's really just a numbers game. I mean, the more members we have, the more things like this we can do. The more people we take to infiltrate other people's stadiums, the more we can create a section at the home at our home games. So, I mean, it's pretty simple. The more that we have, and the more that are dedicated, and more that are down with the cause, the more we can change.
Yeah, fantastic. I don't know if you guys heard, but did you hear that Jacksonville is doing they're adding a dog park to their stadium now?
Oh, it doesn't surprise me.
And you can bring your dog and then watch your dog on video. They'll have cameras set up like a daycare where you could then, on a 1,500 square foot, watch your dog run around from the seats. And this was kind of big news, but I thought the bigger news was this, that they also are getting a stadium expansion. And they are expanding the stadium for a deal to the fan by removing those tarps. If only the Panthers stadium expansion and dome was as easy as putting a tent over the building.
Oh, if only.
All right. That's
Jacksonville. I wanted to ask you something. I remember when we first ran into you and this whole Roaring Riot concept. You said to me that it was sort of you were sort of following a template, if you will, that had been done by the Jacksonville version of the Roaring Riot. It's called like the Legionnaires or something like that.
Well, it's actually the template of the U.S. Men's National Team Supporter Club, the American Outlaws. But the Jacksonville fan base, there's a group called the Bold City Brigade, and they were the first group that I saw that implemented this kind of template, if you will, into the NFL. And as of today, we're really the only two that I've seen that have that follow the model, the way that it's done with the soccer supporters. So, it's easy to joke about Jacksonville, and obviously they have attendance problems. I mean, their team has been crumbling.
Oh yeah.
But that diehard group down there, that BCB group, Bold City Brigade group, I got nothing but respect for those guys. They travel well and they represent well, and they've been pretty friendly to us, and we appreciate it.
Do you have any idea of their numbers?
I think they're in between 2,500 and 3,000 members, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know exactly, but they've got a decent sized group. And the good thing about Jacksonville is they don't have PSLs, so they've just kind of organically created their own section. I think it's like a lower level end zone section. And basically anybody that wants to buy a season ticket in that section, they talk to a specific salesperson and they just migrate into there. And then I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago, that section on the tickets, they actually printed the standing only section or the standing section. So that way, if you have tickets in there, you can't tell people to sit down because those guys stand up and cheer the whole game.
That's awesome.
Yeah, don't do that at a Panthers game.
Exactly.
You don't want, especially if you're in the lower level, you best sit your butt down.
What if you cheered? What if you stood up and cheered on third down?
Oh gosh, they hate me because I like to bring signs in. So I'll be like holding this sign up, woo, and they're like this whole, So I do try to be respectful and like immediately sit down when after the play is done. Like, and I like, all right, let's save it. Back up, down. I feel like I'm Catholic. I just feel like I'm at mass. Up, down, up, down, up, down. All right, so that's enough on the schedule. Zach, we're going to get into cat calls. If you want to hang out, you're more than welcome. If you need to go, you can tell them where to hit you up.
Yeah, I'm probably going to take off if you guys don't mind. I got an early meeting tomorrow, and I'm pretty old. This is late for me. But, again, I appreciate you guys. Like I said, we've been friends for a long time, and, I always have respect for C3 and what you guys do, and, I appreciate you having me on. So if anybody wants to check me out, I'm on Twitter at Roaring Riot Z.
All right, man. Appreciate it. And we'll see you in Charlotte and maybe actually, go ahead. I'm really interested in that New Year's Eve game in New Orleans and just stay.
Why?
That's what you should do, folks. Is if that's the game, you just stay for New Year's, man. I'm off from work.
Years and probably.
I want half of us as Roaring Riot fans and people who know you. I don't know if many people know this, but you are incredibly generous with your time and with everything you do. You're always worried about putting the Panther fans first. And I want to say thank you for that. You do an excellent job, and you may not hear that enough, but you really are doing outstanding work, and we thank you.
I appreciate it, Joey. That means a lot coming from you guys, man. So, yeah, thank you for that.
All right, man. You have a good one, dude. We'll catch up.
Let me know you're coming to town, man. I'll make sure to put some of those tickets aside for you guys, all right?
You got it. All right. Thanks a lot. All right, guys, we're going to jump into the cat calls and let it steer the second half of the show and then try to get to our Hurney talk because I have some important things to say about that. Here we go.
So what are your thoughts on catcalling?
Yeah, it's pretty you shouldn't do that to somebody.
And how did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
So how do you think catcalling makes the person feel?
It feels good, like.
Who's that cat sitting in the back corner with his face buried in his nose? Who's that kid that can use one?
Hi, what's going on, cat fans? This is Carl D. What's going on tonight, fellas? Mr. Tony, the professor.
Love Carl D.
Mr. Mail himself, and the mean man himself, Joey. What's going on? Anyway, I'm just calling. I have a question for you guys. I know every fan might have a different opinion of who we should draft. You guys tell me this: if Gesicki, the tight end out of Penn State, is there at 24, I say take him if instead of a wide receiver, because with the status especially about the news coming out, and we're unsure about Olsen, we need to be thinking about getting his replacement. And a guy like Gesicki is there, you need to go ahead and get his replacement now, because next year, who knows, the tight end class might be worse than this. So you guys tell me what you think about that. We can get a wide receiver in the second round. The class is deep, just like we can get a running back in the third round, or vice versa, running back. Second, wide receiver, third, whichever one first. Or even a safety. The safety, running back, and receiver class seems to be the deepest this season. So you guys tell me what you think about that, and till next time, keep pounding. Oh, by the way, can you guys let me know how I can try to get on with this, get on the show? I wouldn't mind coming on the show Thursday draft night. So give me some info. Let's make it happen.
All right.
All right. Well, first, Carl D, if you want to get on and make that happen, we can do that. You can email me at carolinacatchronicles@gmail.com or send me a DM on Twitter. Usually the best two ways to get in touch with me. Mel, I'm going to turn this question over to you. Gesicki in the first. Well, from all the mocks, this sounds far too high, but in the past, I would think that would not be an absurd suggestion.
Well, conceptually, what Carl D is saying, I 100% agree with, is that tight end is a bigger need for this offense than wide receiver for a couple of reasons. One, it's a deeper wide receiver draft, as Carl rightly said, and then also think about it, guys. I mean, at the end of last year, Funchess was hurt. Samuels was hurt. Bird was hurt. I mean, we were playing with backup hurt players.
And we've got two new ones, too, in Jarris Wright and
right.
Torrey
So
Smith.
We're going to come in with a healthy Funchess, a healthy Samuel, hopefully. You got Torrey Smith, who was on the Super Bowl team as a starting wide receiver last year with still wide open speed. So we have at least an adequate receiving core and arguably much better than last year's. So the tight end core, we're not even 100% sure Greg's going to be there. And we know that right now the tight end 2 is Manhurts. So I agree. It is a big deal to get a tight end. Now, I'm big on Gesicki. I agree with you, Tony. I think 24 is not the number. In my personal latest final mock that came out today on Draft Tech, you can check it out at drafttech.com. This is our last, and this is my prediction on where we're going. I do have us taking Gesicki, but I have us taking him at 55 in the second round.
All right. I think that I do want to put out this. Lynn put a good comment. She said, I think before we get into who gets drafted, we need to listen to a clue Hurney gave. And that was, I'm sure she's referring to today's press conference where we would be fine with Lynn addressing the media for the Panther Nation. But It was Marty Hurney and Ron Rivera up there. And she says that his focus on positions that get to the passer and that positions that protect the passer.
Right.
So what we talked about and what we visited last week was the idea, and I think Slim J is echoing this sentiment that was discussed on the podcast last week and that clue that Marty Hurney gave. And he said, we need Ryan Khalil's replacement before Olsen's. So I think I'm really impressed with Gesicki. Just looking at what he's done and how he looks out there. I mean, he looks like a different grade of athlete. One of the things I do to speak positively on him and Saquon Barkley and all those guys, I think Deshaun Hamilton, isn't there a receiver?
Yeah, out of Penn State, yeah.
So Josh Norris on the Roto World football podcast, these guys use this one measurement. They think that the combine is revealing about what a player can be, but in a different way than just saying this guy, look, he did this. They try to look at those times holistically and put together an athletic profile. And they're not saying that guys with low profiles can't do well at times, but that a lot of the guys that are exceptional in the NFL tick off more than just one box, And they were saying that all these guys coming out of Penn State, there was like 3 of them that have these scores that are like 97, 98, 99, and that's like off the charts good. So there is that. But, you got to – I think what we need to know is that Hurney did say let the draft board come to him. And you don't want to overreact and jump too quickly and pass on something. So we'll talk more about that. Let's get to the next call.
And I'm back. And finally, the one thing I want to talk about that.
It's Cody's call that it's the second half, guys. You guys.
For itself.
Hold on. We'll get to the next call.
This has been the YouTube champion. You know I love you, and you know I can't.
What's up, C3 Podcast?
We'll get back to Cody.
Joe, the mixtape version.
Long-time fan. This is the Batman. I was just calling in because I had something I wanted to talk to you guys about. First, want to get off my chest that I think that Carolina needs to get into a win-now mentality. I've been preaching this forever. We're halfway through Cam Newton's career, and we've been focused the whole time on the future and getting things ready for him in the future, that we've passed it up into the now, and we have nothing for him. I don't want to see this great quarterback spot in Carolina get wasted, and I would love for Carolina to start to get a win-now mentality, a win-now attitude. With that being said, I have a hypothetical situation that I think would be ideal for the Panthers. Once again, this is all if this happens. There's a really good chance that Saquon Barkley can fall to the 4th or 5th pick this year. I know the Cleveland Browns and the Denver Broncos have both talked about shopping their pick out. I think that it would be ideal for Carolina in the long run to do everything they can to get Saquon Barkley if he falls to the 4th or 5th pick. I know it's going to cost us a lot, but we've seen trades like this happen before, and they've worked out pretty well. I mean, in 2011, the Falcons traded a first, a second, a 4th-round pick for that year, and a 1st and a 4th-round pick for the next year for Julio Jones. And we see what that did for him. That's a win-now move. That's a we're-ready-to-win move. A few years ago, the Eagles traded a 1st, 3rd, and a 4th of that year, as well as a 1st and a 2nd for the next for Carson Wentz. And we see how well that worked out for him. Sometimes when you mortgage the franchise for a player, it works out well for you. You got to be in a kind of a no-risk-it, no-biscuit attitude. I mean, you can't win big if you don't bet big. I think Carolina would be dumb if they passed up the opportunity to have Saquon Barkley if they had the chance to do it. Can you imagine a backfield with Cam Newton, Saquon Barkley, and Christian McCaffrey? It would be amazing. Now, I love Christian McCaffrey, and I think he's a great running back, but I think he's a better receiver. I mean, last year he had 651 yards receiving as opposed to 435 rushing. He had 5 touchdowns receiving as opposed to 2 rushing. He had 80 receptions. He was 15th in the league in receptions his rookie season as a running back from a non-accurate throwing quarterback. That's pretty damn good. I really think we could utilize Christian McCaffrey in the slot. That would solve a lot of problems we have at receiver. It would also give us an option when we have him and Saquon Barkley in the backfield with.
Yes, this is.
All right, so let's talk about that quickly, Mel. I know that this is something that this is the only time you would be interested in this, in trading.
Can I address this?
Yes, please.
All right. There's a couple of things here. I'm going to try to go through them quickly. I think win now is a great thing to be. I wish we were in a position where we could do that. If we were in a position where we were a running back away from the Super Bowl, I would say, heck yeah, let's do this right now. Let's make this happen. However, we're several positions away from making an honest to goodness run at the Super Bowl. We need all of the picks we have. If we could trade back and get more picks,
and then trade up.
I would love that.
But you can't do that at that point because Saquon Barkley's already been picked up if you trade back and then try to trade back up. But you're right.
No. I'm saying we don't go get Barkley.
Right.
We're not a running back away from going to the Super Bowl. We need other positions addressed, so we need all of our picks. We cannot go get Barkley. We need the draft picks. So that's what I'm saying is it doesn't make sense. It would if we were running back away from the Super Bowl, but we need a safety, we need a tight end, we probably need offensive line help. You know what I'm saying? So there's more than just one spot, so we need our picks. If we could trade out of 24 and pick up an extra second and a third and a fourth, I'd be all for it. So that's why I don't think, this move is not one we can make.
It would be good in trading back if you did trade back and you had a team that maybe potentially wanted to move to 24 because they were eyeballing a quarterback or somebody who was pushed down the draft board because because of all the quarterbacks that may go on a run at this time.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
here's a scenario that could happen, and tell me if you'd be interested. Let's say the Browns do what I think they should do. I think they should take Saquon Barkley #1 overall.
I agree.
He's the best player.
I 100% agree.
No doubt about it.
And then at 4, if I'm them, I'm taking Bradley Chubb. I mean, imagine Chubb and Gregory, or who's their other guy? Garrett.
Miles Garrett.
Imagine those two. I wouldn't want to play those guys later in the year, and they're on our schedule. I'd be more afraid to play them with Barkley and Chubb than with Sam Darnold or somebody like that. So,
right.
All right, but let's say they do that. They also have pick 33 and 35 or something like that, too, in the low 30s.
Right.
What if they passed on their quarterbacks and somebody like I don't know, somebody that they're interested in at a quarterback is there at 24, would you trade the 24 back to get 2 picks in the 30s?
Yes.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 thirds, 2 seconds that are almost. I think the other thing too is, I mean, there are rumors that Josh Rosen.
You'd have 3 twos then.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 3 twos, 2 threes, and if we were able to pick up a 4th somewhere, that would be awesome.
And I'm thinking when you acquire those picks too, you can move in the later rounds a little bit more. So you jump from the 4th to the 3rd and get a guy that you have a lot more faith in or something. So there would be that.
Let me say this, and Joe, you're going to disagree with me, but that's part of the fun of this show. I do agree with you. We are not a running back away from being Super Bowl contenders, but I will say we are a Saquon Barkley away from being Super Bowl contenders. That guy is a Hall of Fame type of running back. I think he's better than Todd Gurley. I think he's better than Ezekiel Elliott. I think if you put him on our team, I do think that makes our defense better. It makes Cam Newton better. And if I had to trade, as much as I love him, if I had to trade CMC to if Barkley's there at 5, he's a Denver kid. The Broncos would love him. Trade him and the 24th pick and a 2nd round pick to the Broncos to get the 5th pick, I would do it in a second.
I would feel so much better about that if Barkley could play defensive back too.
Well,
all right. How about this? I didn't realize this, but Barkley had 18 touchdowns each of his last 2 years.
He's a monster, dude. I'm telling you, and he is a fantastic blocker. I mean, he is protection. Cam would get hit much fewer times. I mean, it's just.
I don't think there's any way in the world he's going outside of the top 4 picks.
Well, with 6 quarterbacks, I mean, people get so stupid over quarterbacks in the top 5. It's not. He should go #1, but he could fall to 6.
I think it would be cool. I think he's the only player worthy of trading up for. But you know what? I wouldn't be opposed though if Geis is sitting there at 17. Like, how do you move up 5 picks? What do you got to give to do that? Is that too expensive?
You're gonna have to give your 1st and then probably at least a 3rd.
Yeah, and I would do that. I would trade 24 and 88 to move up to 17 and get Geis. I think he makes us incredibly legitimate. He's not Barkley, but he's legit for sure. He's #2 on my board running backs.
Do you guys think Gesicki is the #1 tight end?
I think so.
I think he's #2.
You think Hayden Hurst is #1?
No, I like Goddard.
Is that the guy that Lashney likes? North Dakota, something like that?
West Idaho or something like that.
Okay, I think that's the one Cody Lashney likes. So I think, though, that you're going to get a guy who's, there's some options there. I think the other thing about Saquon Barkley is that I agree. He's the only player I think that's worth moving for in this draft, not just for the Panthers, but kind of overall. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think you should move up to get a quarterback if I'm one of these quarterback-needy teams that I'm not sure how I feel about. They say Josh Rosen is slipping. Josh Allen hasn't completed a pass since he was born, it feels like, from what people are saying.
But teams are moving, man. The Buffalo Bills are working the phones right now trying to get up into the top 5.
So
they're not doing it to get Barkley.
They may be doing it, but I think that Barkley's the only like transcendent talent right now.
That's why I take him number 1.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I've been saying that for weeks. I do. Let's go on to the next. Joe, did you have one more thing to say?
No. That's it.
Okay, we'll keep going.
Antoine Henderson calling from Georgia. I was wondering why the Panthers not talking about taking Orlando Brown in the second round offensive tackle, Oklahoma.
Tony Dunn.
All right. Oh, crap. All right. What number was that? Keep going. You guys talk about that while I figure out the call.
For me, it all starts with 14 reps on the bench press. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Well, he did have just a pedestrian combine workout. He's going to fall, probably. Now, one thing, though, that you do find is big guys do go sooner than you predict every year. Now, watch, Frank Ragnow will probably be gone by the time we get to 24.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what we've been expecting. So you never know. I mean, until we see this guy out there on the NFL field, I can't say he's going to suck. But I would be very hesitant to pull a second-round draft choice on a guy who's just showed that he's not NFL athletic.
I mean, his combine was so putrid, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. That is the thing. That makes me question his commitment to his craft. He should have been busting his hump getting ready for that combine instead of sitting around eating Twinkies and ho-hos. You know what I'm saying?
I worry too about these guys is I know that we say that we shouldn't let the combine override tape too much, that it should verify what we see on film. But I do
and that's
think
mostly true. That's mostly true.
But guys, one thing about the combine is the guys that take it serious and come out and put up astronomical numbers, at least they're committed.
I mean, this dude is 6'8", 345 pounds.
And did 14 reps of 225.
And they had a vertical jump of 19.5.
Yeah.
Well, that's not terrible.
I mean, come on.
I mean, man, if you're that big and that fat, you don't.
I know,
jump
right? Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I think though this is for me, and I want to legitimately address the call because I don't think it should be dismissed because he did have a terrible combine. I mean, we're talking about a combine that was so bad it was hard to watch. But I think here, one thing we do have to, I think, take the combine seriously, or some of these things, is that there's kind of a special class of athlete in the NFL. And you may be really good in college. It's kind of like the high school guy who was a good high school football player, but is a nobody in college. There are guys who are really good in college who look like they dominate on the field that they play with, but when they get to the NFL, they are average to the bottom of the heap. And that is where I would be concerned. How does this translate in the long term to a place where you have guys who was that one, was it Will Hernandez? Who's the one offensive line? He ran like a 40 time that was as fast as that Hayden Hurst.
Yeah.
So you've
now to Brown's credit,
big dudes.
You do. Now to Brown's credit, he's got the gene pool, right? I mean, his dad was an incredible left tackle in the NFL, and his arms are like grapevines. He's huge, right. So, and he did have a good career at Oklahoma, and he played behind Darrell Williams for a year, right? And he's got some good traits. Second round's too high for me. I would pick
and that's
88, maybe. Pick 88 possibly.
Yeah. Now, see, you want to pick him up in the third round, and now I'm thinking, okay, this is a guy that you can work with. Maybe get him in. Let what's his name? Masco. Yeah. Let him work with the offensive line coach, and let's see if we can mold him into something, but not at 24. That's just too high.
No, he said second round.
Yeah, he was saying 55.
Okay. Yeah,
but
and even that's too high.
Yeah.
I think here is, I'm just going to point out this, is look at how poorly some of the guys who check off all the boxes do. You look at Eric. I think of this as 2 years ago when we didn't pick the left tackle. And all those guys who were supposed to be great are now, or are like top tier tackles in the best tackle class you had seen. Now you got Eric Flowers not even making a team hardly, maybe.
Right.
That's why you go for best player available and not position. That's exactly
right.
All right.
That's
I got,
exactly right.
let's get to Cody's call. I got it pulled up, I think.
Tony Dunn, Mel Mayock, that freaking Puerto Rican Joe Riolano. What's up, boys? It's the YouTube champion, and I'm back in the cat calls. And I have a few things that I want to kind of touch on tonight. One, I kind of have a bit of a disagreement with our very own Mel Mayock, and I want to go over it real quick. So one, I believe that Nick Chubb is not only the better of the two Georgia running backs, but I believe he is a much better fit for the Panthers. One of the reasons I believe this is because if you go back and you look at the film, Chubb is almost always facing a stacked box. I'm talking 8 or 9 men ready because they know that Nick Chubb is barreling up the middle. And even with that, he still averaged 6 yards per attempt. Guys, that's insane. That's the kind of power that we need on our offense. I mean, when you have a guy like Christian McCaffrey who's running routes and can also be, a scat back type of player that can also, hasn't reached his highest potential, Nick Chubb is a perfect complement to that. Also, Sony Michel has a real problem with ball security. I mean, there was in that game in the Rose Bowl against Oklahoma, there was a real big fumble that put Oklahoma right back in the game. I also feel like, Sony and Christian would just be a little bit redundant, and I think that it wouldn't complement what we're trying to do as well as Nick Chubb would. Now, I have another thing, but I'm going to let you guys talk about that for a second, and I'll call back in a second. Because I want to be a little bit of a naysayer about someone who the Panthers fans are really excited about drafting. Actually, 2 of them.
All right, he's going to call back with that. Let's talk about this briefly. I agree 100% with this. I am not going to be swayed or actually teased by the pretty girl in the Mazda Miata. And I'm going to go after that old, proven, tried and true Camaro that is Nick Chubb, right? But let's talk, because we have talked about this a little bit more. We have talked about this in the past. You've heard what he said, Mel. Can you address are there any concerns with that ball security role? And what do you think about how some of the places that Chubb succeeded in, does that add any credit to what he was able to accomplish?
Well, I do like Nick Chubb. Don't let me be construed as saying I'm anti Nick Chubb. I'd be very excited to have him on our team. What I like about him is a 4-year player, right? And he averaged 6.3 yards per carry over a 4-year career. I mean, that's pretty rare. And he's a big dude, and he would be a great compliment. I just happen to think Sony Michel is special. He averaged 7.9 yards per carry last year. The guy is a home run threat, and he's got a little bit of Alvin Kamara in him from what I see. So I think you put him and CMC together, and, yeah, you don't have the big Bo Scarborough power back, but that's all right. You got Cam Newton, you've got Sony Michel, and you got CMC. That's 3 special runners. I love Chubb, but I think Sony Michel is a little more special.
Joey, look, in the chat room, Rick James is here. What's up, bitch? Rick James says, I like the Chubster at 24, and then Slim J says Nick Chubb is great, but not a first-round pick. I'm sold on Nick Chubb's ability in the NFL, but I do understand, and I think this is a fair point by Slim J, is that you may be you're reaching potentially at that point because you saw what you need a kind of heavy hitter back a little bit, and you got a guy that you potentially believe in. But Joe, is there anything else concerning about by drafting at 24 a running back? Could you potentially be reaching 2 years in a row for running back? Because while Christian McCaffrey was very good his rookie year, he was originally projected in the mid first, late first, or even, in that type. And I think some of those concerns panned out on the field a little bit. Maybe this was the Panthers not using him correctly, but a seventh overall pick, or what were we, 7 or 8 last year?
8.
That is a guy that is that's a big price tag if you're thinking about where you get to draft as a team. And so, Joey, do you think that there are any concerns about potentially reaching 2 years in a row, or do you think that it wasn't a reach?
I don't think it was a reach because of what we were trying to do. We were trying to change the style of our offense. And you have to start that process somewhere. And it started with CMC. We were trying to go from this round and pound to a speed offensive attack. And so because of that, it was not a reach.
Okay.
I think if the right running back is there at 24, then it's okay to make that move. But the potential is there for it to be a reach if it's not the right guy.
Yeah, like it has to pan out, and it has to pan out really quickly.
That's why, to me, Geis is the only guy I'd take at 24.
Yeah, because he's not going to slip. And then there's even some, and this is what Alex Lynch says in the YouTube chat. He says, y'all sleeping on my guy Josh Adams. Any thoughts on Josh Adams running back out of Notre Dame, Mel?
I honestly have not studied him enough to really.
Okay.
I watched him play.
I watched the Notre Dame games, but
because he played Clemson, and I'm a big Clemson fan. So I watched him play, and he's a big guy, and he can move fairly well for a big guy, but he's not. I don't think he's first-round material.
Oh, well, no. And I don't think he was necessarily suggesting that, but I think that the point that Alex Lynch is probably intimating here is that
it's a deep draft.
Yeah, is that, is there really how much are you truly sacrificing if you go from, say, a Chubb to a Rashard Penny later in the 4th round or something like that, if that happens?
Or Kerryon Johnson or something like that.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think going and getting a running back later is a much better move than trying to make something work at 24. I'd rather go later and pick somebody else up.
Yeah, I agree. And especially for a guy that's going to kind of only have a limited role as just by default, is that you need to have Christian McCaffrey out there and so you can't just either run 2 back sets all the time. There's going to be a time where he's going to be a 1st and 2nd down guy, and then you're putting Christian McCaffrey out there on 3rd down. So you do have to take that into account. And I think that is some of the criticism about Christian McCaffrey is it's not that he's not good. It's not this. Is he on the field enough to justify the 7th round pick? But, just things to think about. I do want to also point out that, and hold on, it was, gosh, who said it? I saw it. It was not Cody. It was Moneybags Lawson, who's a great contributor in the chat room. He said, fun fact, Orlando's Brown's dad was the player that was blinded by the ref.
That flag. I remember that.
Yeah. For the round.
See, this is just, again, how great the chat and the conversation does for this show is that you get all of these wonderful nuggets that we can't just come up with on the fly. You guys have so much knowledge in this chat room. It's so impressive to see fans so well versed. All right, let's go on with part 2 of Cody's call.
And I'm back. And finally, the one thing I want to talk about that I've been seeing online, that I've been seeing as a common theme amongst Panthers fans, is that we're going to take a cornerback at 24. Personally, I'm ecstatic about that. That makes me very happy. But I'm only really happy if it's two of them.
Oh, don't do that, Tony.
And I'm back. And finally, the one thing I want to talk about that I've been seeing online, that I've been seeing as a common theme amongst Panthers fans, is that we're going to take a cornerback at 24. Personally, I'm ecstatic about that. That makes me very happy. But I'm only really happy if it's two of them. And I've seen two of them mocked to us a lot that I really just don't think would be a good fit for us. And that's Yair Alexander, who is from right here in Charlotte, and Mike Hughes, the cornerback out of UCF. Now, the reason why I say that is because, guys, twice a year we face Mike Evans, Julio Jones, and Michael Thomas. These are big-bodied possession receivers, guys that can go up and high-point the ball. I just think that Alexander and Hughes are too short, and their arms are too short to be effective to be able to continue to bat down balls and make interceptions against those kinds of receivers. Personally, I would absolutely love Joshua Jackson at 24 because he's a zone cornerback, and that's what we are. We're a zone defense. I mean, he had 8 interceptions last year at Iowa. That kind of speaks for itself. Another guy that I don't feel is getting quite the love he deserves is Isaiah Oliver, the cornerback from Colorado. Man, this dude has arms like the Golden Gate Bridge, okay? I mean, he is very disruptive. He's fluid in all his movements. And I'm telling you, if that's a pick, I don't know if it's the first round or the second round. If you hear Isaiah Oliver's name called either on day 1 or day 2, do not be mad at that pick. Well, boys, this has been the YouTube Champion. You know I love you, and you know I cannot wait for draft night. Who knows? Maybe I'll be seeing you guys there. Peace and love. Keep on pounding.
Okay, so one of the things I think that's interesting is that Mel's evil twin, Mike, put out his top 100 list of players, and he said this is that what he had was one of the surprises that I was talking with someone on Twitter about today was that Denzel Ward was ranked 15 while Yair Alexander from Louisville was ranked 12 ahead of him. And so I didn't know what to make of that, but I did see this is that these guys are ranked among, and this is Mike Mayock, not necessarily what's going to happen. He's ranking these in a different order of what he thinks is going to happen on the draft night. But if Yair Alexander, Marcus Davenport, Denzel Ward, Deron Payne, James Daniel, Harold Landry, Frank Ragnow are picks 12 or prospects 12 through 19, and then you have some guys like Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield who are below them, Lamar Jackson, there's an opportunity you could push down and get a guy who we truly think is out of our range, maybe a Will Hernandez, maybe a Darius guy. There's only so many picks there. So Mel, how do you think do you think that the Panthers need not worry about getting a guy who can match up in man and should look for more that is scheme oriented fit?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to get a guy who's overly skilled at man coverage when you don't play man defense, right? I mean, you want a guy with great instincts, ball skills, and can play within the type of defense that you play. And if you go to drafttech.com right now and you go to pick number 24, that's who I predict us taking is Josh Jackson. And that's who I think fits our defense the best. I know he didn't win the Underwear Olympics, and I know you're down on him for that reason, but he is one heck of a player, dude.
I just didn't like the back pedal, dude. It was just the back pedal looked so awkward. It wasn't the measurables in this. It's just like that seemed to be something you should be good at this point. If
I
you're a
think the
corner.
back pedal becomes more important in a man-to-man scheme.
Right.
It's not quite as important if you're running a zone. You know, I know a lot of people are thinking Alexander. A lot of people.
Which I would be all right with. He's a heck of a player, too.
He is a heck of a player, but I know he's had some injury issues in the past.
He has, and he's 5'10".
Right, and he's short, and that's my main concern. I like Harrison. I know he's a liability in man coverage, but
He
again,
won't play man coverage, right? I would be ecstatic with him.
Okay, I did hear on on that same Roto World podcast I mentioned earlier, though, they were talking about Josh Jackson, and one of the things that they floated out there is that he might be a good fit at safety.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
And does that potential, if he's not ideal at corner, or if we do have an important need at safety, right? If you could get young and fast and have a ball hawk, that could be a different role. Does that add any value to you when you're in the war room and Josh Jackson's there and you're looking at him at a corner, but you're saying there is a potential that we could move him if we need to?
Versatility, man. It's huge in the NFL. You can play multiple positions.
Isn't that what happened with Trey Boston? Didn't he play corner at Carolina?
I think he was a safety.
He moved to safety?
I think he was a safety.
And I heard them talking today. Minka Fitzpatrick out of Alabama actually played 5 different positions at Alabama.
Jesus.
outside corner, nickel corner, both safety positions, and linebacker.
The dude is versatile, man.
The YouTube chat room is completely split about hearing from or whatever on Josh Jackson. They are completely split. So, all right, let's see. You guys tell me if we've heard this call, because I know I'm missing one. I got 2 more, I think.
What's up, C3 and everybody?
Nope.
It's your boy, J-Dub.
We have not heard this. J-Dub
The
here.
schedule just came out, and I took a little bit of time to talk smack online and figure out all the ins and outs, and I figured I'd share my opinions with you guys without straight doing a projection. We still got the draft and training camp or whatever. But it's nice to start at home playing Dallas. It's only the second time in Rivera's history that we've started at home. That's kind of nice.
Wow.
But then a lot of it I don't like. We don't have a Sunday night game for the second year in a row. Our week 4 is the bye week, which is way early. There's a Thanksgiving NFC South showdown that doesn't include us, which doesn't make me too happy. It's the Falcons at the Saints. We have a decent schedule for home and away, although week 10 through 14 we play at Pittsburgh, at Detroit, home Seattle, at Tampa, at Cleveland. And that's a little bit of a rough stretch going into the final one, where of course we'll play versus New Orleans in a Monday night game, versus Atlanta, and then at New Orleans to end the season, which of course you know you're going to face either Atlanta or New Orleans. I mean, they have to do it. I'm kind of glad we didn't get stuck with the Bucs towards the end. So then we can still be playing meaningful games. Overall, it's not too bad. It's just, I mean, it was going to be rough either way with just our drawing of teams, but the whole bye week that early, and then we have to play at New Orleans to end it, is going to be interesting to see what's going on by then with our record and their record. That could be for the whole division for all we know, but I just wanted to get your guys' opinion and let you guys know mine. Overall, I don't think it's too bad. It's manageable. It's just, there's really no gaping holes where there's going to be a break. It's just going to be a tough schedule all the way, and we're going to have to play good from the start. Second week we go to Atlanta, so there's no messing around, especially when it comes to the division. I mean, we don't play another division game after that until week 9, which is kind of a nice break. Hopefully we'll set ourselves up nicely and then start taking ones from our rivals and be good. Just wanted to say what I thought and get your guys' opinion. Love you guys. Keep pounding.
All right, a couple of things from that call I want to talk about. One is, are you guys disappointed there are not more primetime games on the schedule?
No, because I'm old and I don't like the 8 o'clock.
I know he doesn't even like his own podcast when it goes this late.
That's right.
Are you kidding? I have a problem with 4 o'clock games. Come on.
Yeah, Mel used to watch. He liked football when he lived on the West Coast when he could watch it like when he in his pajamas
with breakfast.
I mean, the last game of the day kicked off at 5 p.m.
That's crazy.
That's unbelievable. How nice is that? Listen, we have to remember, guys. You know, as of this moment, we don't have anything on a Sunday night. But if we're in contention, we might get flexed.
We could be flexed.
So it is still a possibility. So don't count us out just yet.
Yeah, they can flex like the Saints game. Well, that last Saints game.
Maybe Atlanta at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And my philosophy on being disrespected in schedules is don't complain about being disrespected. Just go out and earn it. I mean, that's all you can do.
I think I'm actually of the opposite opinion, not of that, but of the desire for primetime games. And maybe it's just superstition, but and I know that everybody, once I say this, they're going to be like, well, we beat the Patriots on Monday night. I feel like more times than not, we lay stinkers on primetime games. I keep going back. I'm just trying to think of like last year when we played Philadelphia. That was a Thursday night.
Thank you, Jay Stu.
It was an atrocious game by the Carolina Panthers. I think we played Philly again. This was like in 2012, maybe. Do you remember?
Well, we only lost by 5, so it wasn't atrocious. But
it was atrocious to watch, dude. Yeah. And it was that last second we were coming in. It was all Cam Newton. But so I guess I just have this, is that it seems like Panther players don't like to, or that football players like routine. They truly love routine, and that these primetime games tend to throw
just like
off
the bye week. Yeah, that goes into the same thing of sucking coming out of the bye week, right?
Yeah.
You get out of your routine. Now, one thing I will say about the schedule that I do like is this is a record franchise low number of travel miles.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was just going to point to. The farthest west we go. Can someone tell me what's farther west, Cincinnati or Cleveland? Oh, no, we host Cincinnati.
New Orleans is
the farthest west we go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit right there. The other thing I too think is this. When I look at the schedule, I don't like to look at strength of schedule too much, because when you have a weak schedule, it turns out to be hard. When you have a hard schedule, it turns out to be weak. I generally like to say this, is that there's 2 teams on your schedule that you think are going to be good that aren't, and there's 2 teams on your schedule that you don't think are going to be good who are going to be good. The other thing with this schedule that I think is kind of cool, if you just go based on their performance last year, which is truly all we've got at this moment, and what they've done in free agency, I think we kind of get these first 2 games, Cowboys, Falcons, you got to get up for them. But then you get the Bengals, the Giants, and the Redskins, and then you got to get back up for the Eagles. And then you kind of down for the Ravens, Bucks, back up for the Steelers, Lions, Seahawks, down. It's like a roller coaster where you get those little breaks. And then at the end is the big plummet, is the big peak to climb with Saints, Falcons, Saints. So I do think there's that. All right. So I do think we've got 2 more calls in the call box. Let me get on in here. Let me see. Thursday. These are going back.
Hey, fellas. What is going on? Did call last week. It was basically just talking about running back from LSU. I can never pronounce his name.
Guys.
Good running back. That was me. I didn't leave my name last time.
And it broke up this
Still
time.
With the same draft picks. You know, I don't trust Chubb for some reason. I trust the defense. 24 pick. I don't trust the running back. The question I have, gentlemen, and I really, really want you guys' honest opinion. I just found out today on Twitter that Brandon Marshall was released by the Giants.
Oh, God. You got
I always wanted that dude to be in Carolina black and blue.
There was a time I wanted him badly.
Should give him a 1-year vet minimum to come on the squad, or would you just let him walk? Because with him being on a squad, he can eliminate, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, the wide receiver from Memphis, who is a good route runner. That would eliminate, in my opinion, the wide receivers. So, fellas, give me you guys' opinions. And once again, this is G. Cavassier, representing Jacksonville, North Carolina, 910. Keep pounding, fellas.
Nice.
Joe, that's your stomping ground.
Thanks for the call, man.
All right, so
since he's representing the Ville, Jacksonville, let me address this first. Mel, you did say there was a time where you were interested in him, as was I, but that time has come and gone. This guy is on the very back end of his career. I think he's had an amazing career. He's overcome mental illness and depression and really has been inspiring in that fact. However, we have an incredibly full wide receiver core. And, he would not come in and cause us to not need to draft a receiver. We would still need to draft a receiver. So I don't see any real benefit from adding him to the Panthers team.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I do agree with you, Joe, overall, right, is that this is not Brandon Marshall that we're familiar with. You saw a huge drop-off, right, all of a sudden. But I would say this. If I had my choice between Brandon Marshall and Des Bryant, I'm going Brandon Marshall. And that is because I believe that you kind of know that there is this limited timestamp on Brandon Marshall where he would only be an end zone threat, really. I think also you would get him for so much. Basically, what I'm saying is this, is I would not be impressed with Des Bryant at all. And that I would be willing to take a guy that I think is on the way out of the NFL over him, because of the monetary benefit, but I also don't think he would get in the way of a younger player potentially stepping into a role that would need be. But you're right. You talk about the crowded wide receiver room. You draft a wide receiver in the first round. You draft DJ Moore. You draft Calvin Ridley. You're already crowding out one of those guys who's on the roster. You got to wonder, is that does that speak to the health or the thought processes surrounding Curtis Samuel? Does that continue? Look, Damiere Byrd lives on the bubble. He's okay with that. But, somebody is going to get pushed out at that point. So, if you add that, he's right. Then all of a sudden the receiver game is completely twisted. But there is an option maybe. These guys are guys that are signed after the draft to see who you missed on. Maybe you need something to round.
Yeah, I mean, if you get through the draft and you did not get a wide receiver at all, just because of the way the board fell, then you start looking at your options.
Right.
No. But you don't take a guy who might have 1 year left and avoid drafting somebody for that guy. Right? That just doesn't make sense.
All right, last call.
Hi, what's going on, Cat fans? This is Carl D.
Is this the one we already listened to?
What's going on tonight, fellas? Mr. Tony, the professor, Mr. Mayo himself, and the mean man.
Yeah, all right. So we've already heard that call. Thanks, Carl D. Look, that's the Cat Calls line. You can call in 252-228-5098 and leave your voice. You leave your message and have your voice heard on the podcast. The next podcast is the big show. And by the way, since the streaming is working tonight, we are on for Thursday night, which thank God is the case. So Thursday night we'll be getting kicked off around 7:30. We have our live annual draft party where we cycle in guests from around the league, fans from all over the planet. Really, we got Jay Cryer from England jumping in. We've got guys that are regulars on the chat room, and we appreciate your support. And you better be there if you're watching the draft on Thursday night. This is the crew to watch it with.
Don't forget call in on the cat call during the draft. We want to hear your opinion after the Panthers draft. That's a great way for us to hear what Panther Nation thinks.
And that's right. And you knock them out. You can call in, and I'll have enough assistance with running the show to where I can go ahead and compile them and play them that night. So you guys remember the numbers 252-228-5098. I do have one last question for you guys I want to talk about, and I refuse to put off. The whole name of the show was Will Hurney learn from his past, or has Hurney learned from the past, or will it make him gun shy? Guys, I'm thinking about this, is that he was asked about this today in the press conference. He said that don't expect us to be trading away our first round pick for next year, right? Referencing a move that he did in moving up to get Jeff Otah, but then it was a cascading of poor things that happened. Not only did Otah continually suffer from injury, which I don't think that makes him a bust. I don't think, as Bill Voth described it in a piece today, he was a flop. I just think that that's one of the things that happens in the NFL. You get a big guy, gets a foot injury, just can't get over it. He was good when he was on the field, but it was compounded by the fact you didn't have a number 1 pick the next year, and Everett Brown didn't work out, right? So the other thing is that Hurney, what were his mistakes as his first tenure? They tended to be surrounding contracts, being a little too loyal to guys, maybe. But it seemed like that was at the urgency or the urging of Jerry Richardson in some cases. I'm going to defend that. But where he did mess up, I think, guys, is that he did tend to he had 2 positions I felt that he struggled to find solutions at, and that was wide receiver and defensive end. You had a couple of guys that just didn't work out at wide receiver. You go back to Dwayne Jarrett, you go back to Kerry Colbert. Kerry Colbert wasn't terrible at first. He just never was as good as he needed to be. Basically, we could never replicate the Steve Smith-Muhsin Muhammad combination under Hurney. He did hit Steve Smith in a 3rd round pick, which is a home run, but he struggled with 2nd round receiver.
That's his problem, 2nd round.
Yeah, and then you got, I think Joe Adams is another name. Armani Edwards you can throw out there.
I think, wasn't Steve Smith a George Seifert guy?
He may have. Was he?
I think so.
Okay.
Wasn't Everett Brown a 2nd round pick?
Yes. But and Everett Brown
he did draft Charles Johnson.
Yeah, so you did get Charles Johnson in the 3rd. He did, I find... I feel like those were the 2 areas, though, he continued to struggle with. Yeah. So my question to you guys is, now he did get Greg Hardy in the 6th, but some of these things, like I'm not really ready to give Dave Gettleman too much credit for picking star, right? Is that like when the guy who's a top 10 talent falls to you at 13, I don't think it's like that hard of a decision to make. Kind of like Greg Hardy, who was like a top 10 projected talent the year before, who had some problems or had some, his mental issues. He slipped to the 6th. Yeah. So it's not like it was like this crazy pick. Like he picked a guy off that was working at the dang Bilo or something.
Well, I told you guys, once all this started to go down, I've been on the Hurney train the entire time. I'm a big Hurney guy. Number one, I think we owe Cam Newton and Luke Kuechly to him. I mean, most fans did not want either. Or I don't know if most didn't want Cam. But I know a lot did not want Cam, and I know most did not want Luke. So those 2 cornerstones I give straight to him. He did make mistakes on contracts and being too loyal, but I am a big believer in life. When you get a second chance, I mean, just think about some of the jobs that you've had. If you had the opportunity to go back to a previous job and know now what you didn't know then, I mean, you're going to be much better at that job. And I really think Hurney is going to do, and I already think he's done a well of a job. I think it was smart what he did with the wide receiving corps. He picked up an extra 3rd round pick and got rid of Kelvin Benjamin, which I think is already paying dividends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way he treated Greg Olson when Olson came to him complaining about his contract last year was handled very well. He didn't automatically extend the guy and paying, above market value. He gave him incentives, right? So I mean, I already think he's shown to be much wiser, Marty 2.0.
Joe, the reason this came to my mind though is that the gun shy part. Like sometimes when you miss on something in life or when you make a mistake, you either tend to overcompensate and want to prove that you can do it. And then on the other side of the pendulum swings the other way, where you want to avoid the potential of failure so much that, are you getting nervous at the second round and taking a defensive end? Are you getting nervous at taking a wide receiver because of your struggles in evaluating in the past? So Joey, how do you think that any of that secretly is in Marty Hurney's mind?
I think so. And I think because of that, he's going to draft a running back or a tight end in the second round. I'm just kidding. I think at this level, you have to be confident. You have to trust your instinct. You have to trust, that you guys have put in the work. You have to trust your personnel evaluators, and you collectively come to a consensus and you roll with it, and pass or fail, you make your choice and then you see what happens.
Well, Lynn says this: if he is gun shy, it's only because of a new owner coming in and not wanting to make a mistake that will cost him his job. I do think this is that if I want to bet on a guy making a good decision in the first round, Marty Hurney is my guy. You might want to pass the baton over to somebody else in the second round. I understand that, and then pick it back up in the third. Maybe he just he likes odd numbers, right? The other thing though, I have one concern today about Ron Rivera. Do you guys think? Look, if J-Dub said this, Riverboat Ron my ass. Riverboat Ron is that I do think we're going to have to rescind that title from him. At some point, you've just lost it. Maybe it was given to you too quickly.
He's still a good coach, though. I don't want to sit here and bash him.
The one question I got about he was asked if there was enough talent on this team to.
Yeah, that was a BS answer.
Yeah, which is fine. As I understand, what is he going to say? No.
Right.
I do get that. But the one thing I did wonder is that one thing that I've been kind of worried about Ron Rivera is that I don't know if he's been assertive enough with Dave Gettleman or with, is that I'm wondering about his assertiveness and his confidence of what he wants his team to be, because it really seems like he's just ready to defer to North Turner offensively when it comes to if a guy like DJ Moore is there and ready. Do you guys have any thoughts on that real quick?
Well, I mean, that's what you're seeing in public. We don't see what goes on behind closed doors, right? And all this stuff about Marty not being able to pick a wide receiver, things like that, the buck does stop there. But you're looking at, what were the scouts telling him, right? And I mean, it's not just one guy doing evaluation. It's the whole scouting department. But as far as Ron Rivera, he is very passive in the media in terms of being assertive as to what he wants. And that's okay. I mean, it really is okay. It's not his job to be the general manager. But what is he doing behind closed doors? Is he making it clear? Does he have a good relationship, a good communication to be able to tell Marty, this is what I need to be successful? Because to me, when he said we've got enough playmakers to win the Super Bowl on offense, I mean, then you become the weak link, Rivera, if you don't get it done, right? So, I mean, if I were him, I would say, and we could always use more playmakers.
Yeah,
but,
let's throw some. Let's have as many as we can have, right? When we're trying to fix the car, we want a toolbox that's full.
Right.
I do think this is that if there is one lesson to learn from his previous career, it's don't draft stupid people. Like literally dumb people. Dwayne Jarrett, God bless him, was as dumb as a bag of rocks.
But you know what? That was a heralded pick at the time, and I was excited with that pick. I thought he was going to be Keyshawn Johnson 2.0. It just didn't work out. Sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Sure, but I understand that, but it turns out what his problem, I think, was with this between his ears.
Yeah, you're right. You got to be intelligent to play the NFL.
Right, and then I think, too, I go back to Jimmy Clausen.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy Clausen is dumb. Now, I don't know if he really is. He just looks it. He looks like a deer in headlights all the time, right? So he does have a dumb look.
With tiny hands.
He's a spacey.
He went to Notre Dame. I mean, how stupid can he be?
Well, true. But he, and then to see he's a quarterbacks coach now working with, who was he working with? Some prospect that is like kind of a high-end prospect. And I'm like, you poor fella. You poor fella. All right, guys.
Did you see that retweet today from Ian Rappaport from back in 2010 saying, so many teams are going to be so upset they passed on Jimmy Clausen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Mel Kiper still has to quit because he says if he didn't turn out, I'll turn in my card. And, he didn't turn out. He's not even in the league. All right, guys, let's get in and get out of here, guys. Let's hit these ice up picks of the week. This is the time where we tell somebody in the world to ice up, to toughen up, to get it together. Mel Mayock, what do you got for us this week?
All right. Well, hey, in the spirit of the draft, I just want to say, and we've hit on this topic before, but you get a lot of people on Twitter, and it starts grating on me by this time of the year. You get so many people that are so married to one person, and they are so stuck on being right that they will argue and they will put down anything that you put out there if it's anything other than their guy and what they say. And they're so entrenched in their convictions that everybody else becomes stupid to them, and it becomes an argument right off the bat. I mean, anytime I put a Draft Tech mock out there, there's a few guys I know that are automatically going to jump on it and go, oh, that's crap. And then it's just for the sake of saying it. They just want to argue, and they want to stick to only one guy. And you can't stick to one guy. I can't sit here and say it's only Josh Jackson for us to have a successful draft. There's a lot of different ways that it can go, and it's about the whole draft and the whole thing, putting it together. But I just want to drive home the point. Mike Mayock, who we talked about earlier, he is very confident in his picks, and he will tell you he's the smartest guy in the room. But let me just run through 4 years of his quarterback projections, and this goes through.
Oh, nice!
These people talking about you absolutely. I mean, and you hear this on the NFL Network. The Browns have to take a quarterback number one. Anybody else, they've lost their minds. They're stupid. You've got to take a quarterback. It's a quarterback league. You're out of your mind. Well, all right. 2009, Mike Mayock, safest pick in the draft with the highest floor, the best person, no doubt, in this draft is Mark Sanchez. Without a doubt. Take him over Matthew Stafford. Okay. How'd that work out? Right. I mean, Mark Sanchez wasn't awful, but he sure as heck was no Matthew Stafford. 2011, the number one quarterback, and I'm getting an echo here, but the number one quarterback that you've got to take, Blaine Gabbert. Do not take Cam Newton, according to Mike Mayock. How'd that work out, Mr. Blaine Gabbert? All right. 2013, the best quarterback in the draft, the guy that you have to take, Geno Smith, the real difference maker. And then my next best quarterback, according to Mike Mayock that year, is Matt Barkley, then Mike Glennon, then Ryan Nassib. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right.
This is why I think that this like you feel, like you said, this obligation to just draft this quarterback so importantly.
2014, can't miss prospect. The quarterback you absolutely must take, Johnny Manziel.
Oh, gosh.
Johnny Manziel. All right. So Mike Mayock, who is known to be the guy in the draft room. I'm telling you guys, you can't be so emphatic about one player because that one player isn't always going to work out. And you know what? I'm not saying that I can predict who's going to make it in the NFL every time either. Right? I'm going to have my busts. I thought Eric Flowers was going to be a good NFL player. I did, but the thing is, I'm not so married to a guy and then call other people stupid for thinking differently than me. So for people being so rigid and thinking that they know it all, that's who I'm icing up.
Hey, listen, Mike Mayock is so confident in his draft that he only does one draft show where he releases his mock draft.
Yep.
I think the problem with these guys is, I think the problem with those guys that comes down to this sometimes is that you're only looking at a vacuum of this class. And so, like, while this may be the best guy in this class, he might be the 7th best dude from 2 years ago at that position. So I think you gotta avoid being infatuated, or else. I mean, look at how, and you gotta be careful thinking that you feel pressured, because look at the Browns. They've been searching for that quarterback for so long. You better off dang picking, like you said, Saquon Barkley and Bradley Chubb, and then trying to figure out in free agency something.
So what happens when they take Sam Darnold, and because of his long throwing motion and small hands, he's a bust
and a lot of interceptions. I don't think he's as just a lockstep.
He's not my guy. No, he's not my guy.
All right.
If I had to take my top 2 quarterbacks, just to throw it out there, Josh Rosen is the most pro offense ready quarterback out there, and then Baker Mayfield. Those are my 2 guys.
Yeah, supposedly Josh Rosen is slipping outside the top 10 now because these GMs say that there's red flags surrounding him. I'm interested in what those are, because all I've heard, he's just kind of opinionated, and he did take that one picture with the girl in the little hot tub in his apartment.
I don't think he'll make it. I don't think he makes it out of the top 5.
Yeah,
I've been listening to every single interview that's associated with NFL Network or ESPN, and I have to admit, I like the kid. He's kind of he's sort of a moderate kind of guy with some liberal tendencies. I like the kid. He is very confident in himself. He has many interests. He does love football. I think he reminds
me of Aaron Rodgers as far as mentality goes.
I agree. That's who, as far as his personality goes.
Yeah,
I think you're 100% right on.
I think you know what I think they're worried about is him getting in there and being successful, and in 5 or 10 years being ahead of the players' union. That's what they're really worried about.
He's smart, dude. That's a smart guy.
He's gonna bring it to you. All right, Joe, what you got for your ice up pick?
My ice up pick this week is it's sad because our society today, we're so quick to judge people and so reactionary. Dallas Cowboys defensive lineman, he was accused this week. David Irving was accused by his girlfriend on Sunday of domestic violence. And, the police came out. They started their investigation. The NFL started an investigation. According to the news, he faces charges of assault with bodily injury, assault by impeding breath, and unlawful restraint. But earlier in the day, he posted a message on his Twitter account where he says, "She did the exact same thing to me at Iowa State. I called the cops, but being dark and, huge, I'm always the one who's in trouble. She's an MMA fighter, bad attitude, and she uses my position against me." So, basically he's saying she falsely accused him. And then on the 22nd of April, his girlfriend released. Huh?
Did she recant?
She did. I'm getting ready to say that right now. On the 22nd, she released a statement saying, "The father of my child and current boyfriend had a vocal argument that spilled out onto our front yard. My neighbors were concerned, called 911. I was upset and made allegations that were false. And due to my emotional state, basically saying that she lied. She didn't want to get him in trouble. I was just emotionally upset. I'd like to be clear, although our relationship isn't perfect, we love one another. I'm sorry I've caused us both so much unwanted and undue attention. David's a great father, and our focus is working on the relationship. I urge the media to please refrain from spreading this false story. What a load of crap. It's already out there. It's gone all over the world several times over. And now she's saying, never mind, I'm sorry. And what's so sad is now the NFL's involved. The guy could get suspended again.
For 6 games.
Suspended 4 games last year for something that never took place. And so I'm urging people when they see this sort of thing, don't be so quick to react, because this is what could end up happening. So to this girlfriend, MMA fighter, I'm telling her to ice up, because it's a dang shame what she could have just done to her boyfriend. Ice up, Mrs. Irvin.
All right. My ice up pick this week is going to D-Link routers. So I found out, I think what the problem with I think the problem with the show last week is that 2 weeks ago my router crapped out, and I went and got a new one, and I bought one that was only $55-$60. It was a D-Link, but I checked the stats on it. It says 300 Wi-Fi megabyte download. I have my computer wired in and all this. So I got the router back and was having some issues with it. I thought I had gotten them solved. I had messaged Joey after the show saying, I think I got this taken care of. And then I continued to have problems, and I was doing these speed tests, and it was advertised for 300 download. And if you're hardwired, you're supposed to get close to the max on stuff rather than the wireless. I was getting 80 after my improvement on it, and I was like, what in the world? So I just was so mad about the show last week. I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna go take it back, and I'm just gonna upgrade and spend more than I really should, because I don't have gigabyte internet. So I go and get a Linksys router, which is my original router, which I'm now just gonna only buy then, but it's a gigabyte router. Now my speed test went from 80 megabyte downloads to 212 megabytes per second download by this simple change. So to you, D-Link, I'm saying this is that you got to make it more plug and play and live up to your dang message on the box, because Linksys does. So that's it. This is the C3 podcast, brought to you by Carolina Cat Chronicles. Oh, did I say ice up? Ice up. It's the C3 podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com, where every Tuesday night we chop up the latest Panthers news and opinion. This is a special week. It's a holiday for Panther fans and for NFL fans around the league. The NFL draft is Thursday night. We will be having our live draft party starting at 7:30, where we will watch the entire first round and have commentary from people throughout other fan bases, writers for other teams, and also more fans cycled in throughout this show to give their opinions. I know Mel Mayock is excited. This is going to be 2 late nights in a week for you, Mel.
It is. I'm taking Friday off work.
He's taking Friday off work, and I might have to as well. Joe, where can they find you between now and Thursday?
People, if you want to find me, go to Twitter at Joe Milano. If you're interested in being on this podcast, let me know. We'll see if we can make it happen.
All right, fantastic. And also, if you can't come into the hangout, I saw Carolina Man says that he would like to be able to call into the show. The one limitation with calling into the show live is this: the guests on the panel won't be able to hear it. I can hear it. I'm not confident enough I can have that problem solved by Thursday, but you can leave a message, and I'll be cycling and playing those messages. Folks, on Thursday and before Thursday, the number is 252-228-5098. You can find Mel Mayock at Panther Drafter?
Panthers Drafter.
Panthers Drafter. My name's Tony Dunn. You can follow me at cat_chronicles. We thank you for joining the show. Subscribe, like, be with us on Thursday night.
Let's
Take it
party,
easy.
man. Let's break out the pizza and the beer. Let's have fun.
Oh, we'll do that.